Hey guys, Steelmage here. Today I just wanted to go over my Bloodsoaked Banner build for the Mirage League. Just going over like potential upgrades as well for the build and how you can make and replicate the build if you want to play it yourself. Is that good? This is my RF build. Because, you know, I use Warcries. Hey guys, Axe, Gem, Warcries, Auto Exert, Press Banner, Damage. What do you think? That could be the video, chat. Think about it. Alright guys, I'm just gonna go over my build because there's been a little bit of interest and the build's starting to pick up. So we're gonna do a little bit of like a build overview, going over the build and the state of it and the upgrades and all that kind of stuff. So basically, when I wanted to play this build, the way I envisioned it was I would just run around pressing banners. Very early on, people realized that you can't just clear with banners very well, right? Because I'll show you what happens, right? So eventually, right, the banner makes you do this. And then you just walk so quickly out of the banner that it like doesn't clear properly. Like it just, if I go back and see, you'll see like a bunch of mobs are still alive, right? All of these mobs are still alive. And it's because you end up walking out of the banner so quickly before it can even apply one stack of CB. And even if it didn't, you would be backtracking like crazy anyway. So to solve this, I did two things. Number one, I was like, well, we need another skill to clear, right? So right off the bat, I was like, why not just use Enduring, why not use Corrupt and Cry, right? You're already scaling Warcries, you're already scaling Fizz Dot. It's perfect, right? So then, I did another map, okay? Well, now I can cast Enduring Cry, right? And I can map with this. But now it's 3 buttons, and it kind of feels like a piano. Like you got 2 banners, Corrupt and Cry, like it's, you know, it's like boom, 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 boom. But it's a piano build now. So then I was like, okay, hold up. It's a bit clunky, but why didn't I just put this on left click? And I was like, surely this is a bad idea. But it actually turned the build into basically an auto bomber playstyle, and you just swap 2 banners back and forth, and it feels really fucking smooth. Now, as a caveat, you don't want to boss with this. For bossing, you just take it off, right? Because it's not required for bossing. Like, if we're talking like a hard boss, by the way, like a really hard boss, like an Uber. Normal bosses, it doesn't matter so much. You also want to get enough Warcry speed, so that's why I'm running Urgent Orders, Warcry speed on my amulet. I'm running this wheel as well for more Warcry speed, because otherwise it kind of interrupts you constantly. And it feels a little janky. But you'll see, now I can basically just run around, and that little mini stun basically forces me to stay inside of my banner. So it fixes the problem entirely and it feels amazing. And all of a sudden, everything actually dies. We have a really nice, smooth playstyle. The banner's an instant cast, so it actually feels great. And actually, I'll even show you the strength of the build, right? So, obviously, that's just your map clear. But for any type of content that you can be stationary, Blight, all the breach mechanics, ultimatum, ritual, what you can actually do, you put your banners down,
Let's get it done. Cover me. And
you can just AFK, and it just plays, the build plays itself. You press 2 buttons every 30 seconds, which is amazing. So overall, build works, right? It's a W League starter. So I'm just gonna go over the gear a little bit and the setup and how the build works. So basically, in Mirage League, they introduced the Bloodsoaked Banner support. This basically applies Corrupting Blood based off your Valor, right? So how do you get Valor? Now, obviously, we don't want to run around attacking stuff to get Valor. Like, that's normally how you get Valor, just hitting stuff with, like, Sunder or something. But I don't want to do that. I just want to press banners, right? So we use this Warcry, we use this Banner Mastery, this one. Gain 5 Valor when you Warcry. Now, we scale that with Gain Valor. So this becomes 10 Valor when you Warcry, and then we run the Warcry Axe, the Foulborn Ornithil's Kiss, and that basically allows us to get, you know, 2 Warcries a second here, we get a Warcry every second here and here, so that gives us something like, let me do some math, 20, 30, 40, about 40 Valor per second. We also combine this with this as well, Runegraft of Time, just to get a little bit more Valor generation. The more you can get, as much as you can get, the better. And that basically allows us to just spam these banners every, like, you know, every second or two. We can just rotate them, spam them. It's really smooth. So our Ascendancy gives us Fortify. This is just, you know, damage reduction. But these two nodes are very important. This Worthy Cause allows banner skills to keep gaining Valor even well placed. This basically allows us to chain the banners without having to wait with a delay in between. The banner skill duration as well is obviously really nice quality of life. So this is basically mandatory. You can get this from Perfidy, a unique chest, but the node before it is also pretty mandatory, inspirational. This gives us a shitload of regen, aura effect. These two nodes already are insane, by the way. But it gives us basically the thing that enables the playstyle. When you leave your banner's area, you recover 30% of your Valor. Combine that with Valor gain, and that does actually scale it. You end up getting roughly 60% of your Valor back. What that basically means is I can press one banner, walk out of this banner, and I'll get Valor back to place a new banner. So basically you just place one banner, leave, one banner, leave, one banner, leave. So you can kind of see how you rotate it. So the playstyle basically ends up being, you're like, what you're basically doing is when these aren't active, like this, you place new ones like that. So you're basically spending most of your time looking at your buff bar, or just walking out of the circle, right? However you want to do it. Now, that also obviously is why we can run Enduring Cry on left click. Without this axe, you would just be getting, you know, it would be, you wouldn't be able to apply the Corrupting Cry regularly enough, because this actually does also add to your clear. And this is why this was so important, because it adds to your clear as well as mini stuns you, so you stay within your banners, so they can apply their CB too. So you're basically scaling that CB effect. So this basically scales off physical damage over time multiplier, things like Pride and Malevolence as well. Where is it? Pride and Malevolence. So we end up scaling a lot of aura effect. That also has the added benefit of scaling our banner aura. So the main strength of this build is the banners themselves, because normally you could just play like a Corrupting Cry build with a Warcry and call it a day. But the banners themselves have crazy bonuses, right? Like crazy bonuses. Like, to give you an idea, if I have max Valor, you end up with something like 200% suppression, almost 300 movement speed. You end up with capped block and spell block from the Dread banner, and about 800 life on block. So while the two banner effects are down, and they will always be up pretty much, with the one exception which I'll talk about in a second, you end up basically immortal, right? It's very tanky. It gives you regen as well, extra res for overcap, so you don't have to deal with exposure or curses or anything like that. So it feels really, really tanky. And the best part is this works on a shoestring budget. Like, anyone who plays this build, once you get your Valor gen going, which is basically just, you know, copying the setup itself, not so much the gear, but the, like, you know, making sure you've got the Foulborn and Mortal's Axe, the right links and stuff. Your baseline will be cap suppression, capped block, life on block, giga regen, and all res. So it's like, that's a crazy base to build off. Like, that's why I don't need suppression on my gear. I don't need a shield for block. I don't need any, like, I don't even need regen nodes, because I get it all from my banners, right? From my Ascendancy. So your out of the gate package on this build is insane. The only real downside, I would say, is actually getting damage scaling, because as you'll may or may not know, Fizz.dot builds are notoriously difficult to scale, because physical damage over time just doesn't have that much support overall on the tree. So you're really relying on things like cluster jewels and jewel modifiers to really scale your damage in game. Then there's one more thing I wanted to mention. Stormblast Mine was the secret tech that basically enabled this build to get single target, because obviously without it, you end up with, like, my current setup would be roughly 3 million DPS, right? And that's fully ramped and everything like that. That's Pride, 10 stacks of Corrupting Blood, yeah? Stormblast Mine more than doubles this. It puts me at 7 mil. So what Stormblast Mine does is, because we're an aura build, yeah, we're a champion, we have aura effect all over the place. This Stormblast Mine actually gets its it actually scales that effect, right? Each mine, if you read the bottom, each mine increases enemy damage taken by 4% up to a max of 150. We're able to hit that cap. And because you are just running around with your banners, right? You just put your banners down, yeah? And these stay up for nearly 30 seconds. In the meantime, all you need to do is you need to throw these mines down, and you literally more than double your damage. So, and you might be thinking, like, how does it feel? Actually, really smooth, because you have so much tank, and you don't have to press the banners. I mean, look, the banners are still up. They'll stay up for 25 entire seconds. So in the meantime, you have plenty of time to just throw the Stormblast Mines. And you do get more throw speed than this, obviously, because you also get charge mines, which give you more throw speed when you have frenzy charges, which are generating from your Defiant Stand, right? So it feels really, really, really nice. Very important, yeah, very important. You don't detonate them. You are actually just after the debuff. You're not detonating them. So you just want to throw them down, keep them down near the boss. I guess we'll talk about the gear now. So like I said, Fireborn Ulnatal's Axe. This and the Bloodsoaked Banner support. This is the 2 items that are mandatory to play this build. This axe is pretty easy. You just farm the tree, right? It's not a super rare drop from the tree. The hard part is the gem. Now, in Trade League, this gem's not too expensive anymore. It's very cheap now. But it only drops from Wave 15 Simulacrum. When I found this out during League Start, I was a bit sad because Wave 15 Simulacrum is actually one of the hardest pieces of content in the entire game. And the idea of having to farm it was very daunting. I did manage to get lucky, dropped it on my first Wave 15. But even just getting to Wave 15 Sim is hard, right? So for hardcore, this is kind of a dead gem. But for softcore, doesn't, you know, we can kind of like brute force it and get through it. But like I said, very cheap on trade. Like, this is not an expensive gem on trade, luckily, because there's lots of sim farmers. And then, yeah, that's all you need, because this Warcry setup is going to give you all the valor you need to press the banners. And then the banners themselves have crazy base stop fizz scaling, as long as you're maxing your valor. So the gear itself is just life and res. That's the beauty of it, right? You don't need suppression or anything. So you just got life and res here, life and res here, life and res here. I don't even need the attributes or anything like that. I will say, this is solo self-made. My gear's got a lot of work to improve. I'm basically trying to get dot multi on all my rings, which, worth pointing out, you might be thinking, now why do I have a 3rd ring? Let's talk about that. So the Shrine Belt is obviously the new hotness of the league, and we use a very cheap one, just a massive Shrine buff. This is not mandatory, but obviously it feels really nice to have a shitload of AoE coming from this in the Gull, as well as a ton of life scaling. And because you don't need movement speed, because you actually have too much movement speed. Like, as I was showing before, you have so much movement speed, the build's kind of like unplayable if you just want to run. Like, it's, you know what I mean? So you don't need a Quicksilver or a Silver Flask or anything like that. You could literally get away without movement speed on your boots if you really wanted to. So maybe that's a potential angle, running like Combs Roots or God knows what. So ideally, I would have Massive Shrine in either Brutal or Gloom for pops. I just have a Massive Shrine because SSF, but even this feels really nice. Just the AoE and the life scaling is insane. And because we don't need utility flasks, we're able to exploit that and run the Ritual Ascendancy for an extra ring slot and cannot be affected by poison. So that gives us access to an extra ring, which is just more dot multi, you know, more life, res, all that good stuff. I was actually thinking of a way of running like a Hungry Loop or something like that, but I dropped that idea. But yeah, you have a lot of flexibility with that extra ring slot. Obviously, endgame you would run like some crazy helical with dot multi and maybe even Misted, and you can get a ton of dot multi scaling that way, like a lot, which was a huge multiplier to the build. But you know, like I said, I got trash rings right now. I'm SSF. Yeah. Anyway, if you're wondering how to scale the damage, like I said earlier, it is going to be these jewels. Every one of these like dot multi jewels is going to be like 5% more damage. Like just this one stat is like 4 or 5% more damage. So if you get like double dot multi life jewels, you're going to be looking at like you know, 8% more damage per jewel socket. And as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 jewel sockets. Then obviously this fizz damage scaling here from the clusters is also quite a lot of damage as well. So this cluster jewel setup more than doubles my damage combined with the jewels. Then dot multi rings is another maybe like 40-50% more damage. And just that setup like that is going to be about 7 mil if you have my exact copy of my setup, which is again still ramping. The POB that I'll have linked below is going to be about 12 million DPS, which is basically just, you know, better jewels, better rings, gem levels as well, right? Because you can get corruption on Bloodsoaked Banner. So just that will put you at about 11 to 12 mil, which is really, really nice. Yeah, also that's the, what do you call it? The belt is also the reason why we have no utility flasks. So obviously it looks a bit funny, but we don't really need mana. We have corrupting cry and the Bloodsoaked Banner turn your mana cost into life, and then we just run minus mana cost for the rest of it, so none of it costs anything except for the curse, which is still pretty cheap. So we just run life flasks, instant life flasks. If you're wondering why we don't have a suffix here, briefly explain that. If you have a suffix like this, it'll consume the flask. If you don't, like this is me spamming this flask, like as you can see, it won't consume the flask unless you actually take damage. So that's a really nice tech for bossing. And obviously we don't really need 5 suffixes. Like I've got bleed, ignite, and then the rest can be open. So good tech. A quick rapid fire Q&A. I am still self-cursing Vaughn because a high level Vaughn has more damage scaling. The axe is a level 1 Vaughn, and you don't actually hit that easily. Like you can frost blink, or you could detonate your mines, but you don't really hit. So I would rather get the extra damage from Vaughn. But you could theoretically drop this and just run frost blink, and then that would work just fine. That's an extra gem socket if you want. The Ritual Ascendancy comes from the Ritual Boss from, God, what's the invitation called, chat? The Audience with the King invitation. When you place 2 banners down, they last a very long time, but when you want to place new banners down, you actually have to pick them up and then replace them. So that delay of, it's like a 1 second delay. That means you actually lose all your banner buffs, because normally this node here causes your buffs to linger, which means that you always have your banner buffs while mapping. But when you're bossing, you do end up losing that buff to place a new banner down. Now, you can wait for the banner to expire, and it will allow you to instantly press it again, but that means that there's still going to be a delay between pressing the banner and the banner being lost. So that does mean that unfortunately this build is not hardcore viable. If this node was reworked to something like linger after the banner expires, or you lose the banner, that would work really well. But because you basically have to leave the banner AoE to place a new banner, and your banner AoE is so large, some boss arenas you can't, like, you physically can't walk out of it because it's so big. So you're kind of forced to like lose your buffs for like maybe a second. And unfortunately there's no timer, so you can't track it either. So it's a bit clunky on bosses, unfortunately, because of that. But just defensively. Offensively, it's fine. It's purely a defensive thing for hardcore. One other small problem with the build is when you enter a Mirage, obviously this happens to a lot of builds, but you lose all your buffs. That includes your Valor. So you'll have no Valor, and you'll enter a zone with like a ton of monsters. The simple solution to this is Frostblink, then place a Banner. Because you only need a split second to get Valor. So just Frostblink and then press your banner and it's okay. I haven't died pretty much ever to this. But again, this is another reason why it wouldn't be hardcore viable. Because randomly just losing all your suppression and block is going to get you killed if you don't play around that very carefully. So unfortunately, like I said, not hardcore viable. Alright, let's do a quick Maven, I guess.
Death made real.
Stand still.
Why?
Okay, yeah. I mean, this is insanely nice for bossing. Holy shit.
Time contorts.
Yo, I think Ubers are gonna be alright on this bird, eh?
Scurry. Scurry.
My irritation is growing. A cascade of pain.
Any changes to
Do what I
Ubers?
say.
Just more damage.
Stand still. How?
Stop resisting. Reality bends.
Can this build do sim? Should I do a simulacrum chat? Oh, I don't have any splinters though. Fuck. Yeah, this build can do sim. This build's really good for sim actually.
Arrogant toy. A cascade of pain. Stand still.
Wow.
Death will not be an escape.
I genuinely have no idea. Yo, I fucking guessed that. I guessed it.
A cascade of pain. Stand still.
Caretaker! To me!
Nice.
Living toy must enjoy
Yeah, pretty
our
good though, eh?
compliments.